All right, guys. So the news that came out today is absolutely something that no one was going to be able to guess. Let's go ahead and find out what could happen with CRTD for the coming sessions. What is up, you guys? Thank you so much for stopping by once again. This is ARCa coming at you with the CRTD technicals and raw price action thread of analysis on this happy Friday. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share the video with a friend so that you and them could consider joining our trading community in Discord called ARCa Bulls. With that said, let's dive right into the charts. Okay, so we're looking at CRTD on the daily chart here, and I expressed the danger of failing the 2-spot 618 at 25.46 just yesterday, as well as the 2-spot 272, right, you guys? So I mentioned that the only thing that's kind of holding us there was a very high relevance target of geometric target and these candles, right? So upon failing that, of course, we came back down to the nearest geometrical target, which was just shy or within the 3-spot 272 and the 3-spot 618, located between 1879 and 2110. So guys, this is not looking good. Obviously, every single momentum indicator has been flashed to the downside. But what I can say is that usually when these panic sells happen, bounces to the upside tend to happen as well, okay? And they are very random, and they often present an opportunity to be able to liquidate positions if that is the case. Please remember, I'm not a financial advisor. Take whatever I do show and iterate within these videos as just a form of entertainment, as I cannot suggest for you to buy or sell any assets whatsoever, okay? You guys, I need you to do your own due diligence, and everything will be just fine, all right? So let's go ahead and move on with the analysis, okay? So you can see that we actually came right in between that 3-spot 618 and 3-spot 272 with a massive red candle, okay? I have mentioned before that I'm going to leave in our first area of demand, which is still relevant, okay? It's here because I want you guys to know that this is a very strong demand zone for the CRTD asset, okay? But with that said, let's go ahead and now move on to the next chart. I do have a little bit of a saving grace here, but I'm not sure that this is enough for us to consider for a massive upside move just yet, okay? So in my inverse fib, we actually are approaching the 4-spot 618 at about 1755. That's nice, but I mean, it's still kind of a ways away, right? So this is a broadening descending wedge that you're looking at on the daily chart, and you can see that it's following the golden rule of 3 pretty nicely here. So we have test 1 of the resistance, here. Test 2, test 3, this is a fake out, okay? So this is test number 4 breakout and true breakout. Okay, so we actually retraced from realizing the broadening descending wedge at its true breakout target, and also the playbook rules state that you can actually take that target, the profit, my God, I can't speak English today. You can take that profit from about $1.75, right? Located at the genesis of the formation itself. So it realized that move just nicely, right? So now we've retraced and we're starting to test this, the broadening descending wedge, newly converted resistance into support, okay? So now you can see that we are in a similar area to where we were before when we were testing it, in the past. So this is still relevant, and it could still face an upside. Like I said, remember guys, that this sometimes it can actually be a collective group of things. It could be short sellers opening up anything on bad news, right? Because of the catalyst that actually came in. They would likely take this as a very short-term scalp or momentum position, and they would likely cover at the next geometrical target or relevant support. Okay, so I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that sometimes it's kind of likely for it to happen, and move to the upside, presenting an opportunity to get out of the asset with a lesser loss than you're looking at, okay? So if that is the case, if that were the case, then the more obvious targets here would actually be faced to maybe some moving averages and also some, let's go ahead and pull them up right now. I'm going to pull up the SMAs and the EMAs, okay? So the more obvious target would actually be right at about this wick low of the prior day's low, right? So that's going to be, let's see, we can see the candle valuations right up here. So hovering over that candle shows us the low to be at about 33 cents. So we can now face a resistance range, okay? So we'll take a box from that wick low to the EMA 7's current position, okay? So that would take us to about 33 to about 37 cents. All right, so if that's the case, then if this were me, I would already try to maybe liquidate position here. Okay, you guys. So there are other potentials here too. You know, what if there are bulls that didn't want GTII to pair with CRTD? We don't know anything, right? We don't know the details of that. So, and then what if this was the shakeout to get the longs out of the way? So then this thing actually rocket ships to the upside later on, which actually there are some indications that may potentially be a probability here. And I'm not saying that is in fact what's going to happen. I'm just saying that it's a potential, right? So please go ahead and notice that this is the 5-day chart, and we still have about 4 days and 14 hours to close out this last candle here. And we absolutely penetrated the area of support that we were looking for yesterday at about 27.82. So upon making that downside, actually, you know what? Let's take an inverse fib from the previous 5-day iteration and see where we have stopped. Okay, so we stopped right at that 2 fib, right at about 1944. And then we faced a little bit of a bounce. Okay, so this can still be considered the testing of this newly converted resistance into now support on the 5-day broadening descending wedge. Okay, so now it's still, remember guys, that this right now, I have to express extreme discretion now. This is now not mathematically backed. It's just everything now is just based on speculation and higher probability targets and higher probability situations, right? So let's move on and see what we can do about the situation. Okay, so this is what I mean by a potential upside incoming. Okay, so on the bi-daily chart, we can actually see volatility starting to starting to expand into critical volatility zones. In this case here, I understand we're still at 85. I consider critical volatility to be anything at or above or within the 90 percentile. Okay, so when we do get into that zone and then start a contraction phase, and then pairing that with stochastic momentum pivoted towards the upside from both the K average and the D average, or K percent, D percent, which represent a 3-day exponential moving average and a 14-day simple moving average, we can then see a potential upside move, statistically speaking, right? So this is now something that we would have to kind of keep an eye on, because the bi-daily stochastic momentum oscillator is actually still suggesting slight downside here. So if I were to give you, just like I have before, for even GTII, for AMC, for any ticker that you've actually seen me do this with, you'll familiarize yourself. You'll be familiar with this. So I usually take a trend line like this and I just show people what I expect for this thing to happen, right? So the implied the price objective or the momentum objective would essentially be something along these lines right over here. Okay, so if we can do this, then that would take us actually a little further down, potentially into the 16 to 17 cent range, before us making a recovery and an upside continuation. Okay, so what I'm saying is that we're going to get into historic lows on momentum. Okay, and that's particular to what happened in today's event. All right, so we have to practice extreme discretion here. We have to make sure to kind of play this as best as we can, because the situation is already there. It already happened. So now we have to move forward. So now let's go ahead and move on to the last part of the chart, or the last part of the analysis, and take a look at the RSI. Okay, so like always, we're going to start off in that 30-minute immediate short-term time frame, and you can see that the immediate short-term is suggesting a continuation to the downside pretty aggressively, still nosediving. Okay, so this is why I'm saying that the downside, of course, is still more probable than not. So the upside that we can face on a bounce like the one I'm telling you, that where you can liquidate position, would not happen because of technicals or statistics. It's going to happen because of sentiment. It's going to happen because of panic dip sells, panic dip buys, lots of strategies that people can use as a psychological manipulation of sorts. Okay, so let's go ahead and now move on to the bi-hourly chart. As you can see, the bi-hourly is also still nosediving to the downside. And we're clearly below that 14-day simple moving average, represented by the pink line, right? Remember, your purple line is the RSI signal itself. So now the 8-hour time frame is still suggesting a downside continuation, nosediving as well. Same situation with the 12-hour, same situation with, let's go to the daily and take a look at that. Okay, daily is still nosediving as well. And if we can just take a quick jump to maybe the 3-day and 5-day, so the 3-day and 5-day are still suggesting a massive downside and still have more downside to go. So if there were no psychological components applied to this, meaning that upon the covering of anything at a potential 17 or 16 cents, which could possibly happen at that 17.55, by the way. Sorry if you can hear my toddler scream outside, guys. You know, he's just getting a little pissed over eating dinner. But so we can actually face a bounce from this area, and I'm saying as a psychological component. But if we didn't have that psychological component of playing games here, then we would essentially continue to the downside, eventually touching the demand zone that I'm talking about before we can see a potential bounce or a continuation to the downside. Okay, so please know that the targets per technicals and per the charts, right? Not me saying this, is just I'm giving you just what the chart is saying. Okay, so I'm talking about maybe about 1467 or 1450, sorry, being the lower end of the demand zone, and about 1657 being the higher end of that demand zone. Please remember that we do have a few targets to look out for. First of all, 1755 would be the 4-spot 618 on the daily broadening descending wedge, and here 1879 at that 3-spot 618. Okay, so likely we can find a bounce from there and then face some resistance on a geometrical target to the upside. It's very hard to tell in this area, guys. It's entirely sentiment driven, and it's psychologically impaired. Okay, so at this point, technical analysts, statistical analysts can become a little limited in the skill here. Okay, so please go ahead and take whatever you can from this into advantage, or a potential to, you know, maybe consider liquidating position, or taking or removing at least, or slowing down the losses in some way. Okay, but do know that I'm talking about a potential bounce coming in. Okay, you guys. So go ahead and refer to the links in the description below if you would like to reach out to me on Twitter or join the ARCa Bulls trading community. I must express to you guys as well that there are just about 4 or 5 seats left on the ARC Masters trading course, which I've only offered about 4 days ago, and it's already sold out almost, right? So go ahead and refer to the links in the description below for you to sign up for the ARC Masters trading course. Please also know that on Discord there is a raffle going on for, actually it's sponsored by my boy Stick Vicious, who actually donated for an ARCa Bulls family member or community member to join the ARC Masters trading course on his behalf. Okay, so please make sure to refer to the general chat where you're going to be able to see the poll. Go ahead and hit that like button on the poll, and that will automatically subscribe you and put you into the raffle. Okay, you guys? So with that said, I wish you well, a very good night, a great rest of your weekend, and I will catch you at the bell on Monday. Adios.